East Mediterranean started to think about demarcation, the sea maritime demarcation, the natural gas field belongs to whom, and in what percentage, because some of the fields are actually split between more than one country. So there were two levels of tension which was rising right after the discoveries of the natural gas fields. Number one was who owns these fields. Number two, if you own the field, how you will export your natural gas from the field to the market. Problem with the exporting is that you need, not like the oil where you can pump it into the ship and just ship it, you need to have a pipeline, and you also need a very expensive liquefying station where you can actually liquefy the natural gas and make it ready for exporting. Accordingly, this needs a very huge investment, and countries started to feel that this is not working in a short-term kind of plan. You will definitely need something, a long-term kind of plan, and you cannot just make a pipeline for, passing across the borders, crossing countries from one country to the other until you reach the market, which is like the European market in our case. So tension started to rise. I actually want to show you something before going on with the presentation. I want to show you a few maps. I don't know if I will share the screen so you can get to see the map. Okay, so this is the map. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the map which shows you the Ottoman Empire, which was actually a major dominant or hegemon in East Mediterranean for centuries. And this picture goes, this map goes or was valid until the beginning of the 20th century. As you can see here, anything in this area was actually under the Ottoman hegemon, so there was nothing to worry about if there was discoveries back then. Of course there wasn't, but if was there any kind of discovery back then, nothing you would worry about. You can easily split the gains. Okay, this is how it looks like now. You have on this small border between Israel and Egypt, you have Gaza, and of course Israel is denying the Palestinian Authority any right to make any kind of discoveries in this area or drilling in this area. You have another disputed maritime between Israel and Lebanon here. Of course, Israel wants the upper line, Lebanon wants the lower line. The USA is trying to mediate between the two, but nothing is actually happening so far. But this is an actual spot or actually hotspot for tension. You can actually quote a fire immediately if you want to between the two countries, because just last summer, Lebanon actually tried to contract with ExxonMobil to come and start drilling here in this area, and of course in block number 9, and of course Israel warned the ExxonMobil and any other company that you will be a threat to the Israeli national security if you do that. And of course all the kind of drillings. You have, let me show you another map which will show the crypto economic zone, which is even worse in the at the moment. This is the crypto economic zone, which is dotted with the red line, and of course Cyprus is saying that all this area belongs to the crypto economic zone. Turkey on the other side is saying, of course, this is not acceptable, and they are enforcing the drilling with El Fatah, this ship, inside the crypto economic zone. But we need to take in consideration that they are away from the below line, which is the splitting cryptic economic zone from the Egyptian economic zone. But we have here, this red dot is Aphrodite, which is very close to the border of Israel and also to the economic zone of Egypt. And this is the major field which Cyprus and Egypt have signed a deal to export the natural gas from that field to the Egyptian LNG or liquefied natural gas stations, where we can actually ship it to the markets afterward. So the pipeline will go straight from Cyprus to Egypt. It will not pass through this tensed area. Turkey, on the other hand, realized that, and they raised the escalation to a different level, which we'll talk about in a minute. I want to show you the next map. Let's stay with this map for a while. I just want to add one more info about this map, is that up till this moment, where we have only the drilling and the excavation of discoveries, and you are trying to get the gas out of the natural gas fields, there is nothing to worry about except the sea demarcation. Once you start to talk about transferring or transshipping the gas from the field to the markets, now you have boundaries and conflict in the boundaries immediately. Okay. What are the projects which are actually crossing from the East Mediterranean to the markets? First of all, the markets from using the pipelines is actually referring to the European market solely. So Europe is the exclusive buyer of all the natural gas coming through the pipelines. There is no other country in Africa, for example, or the Middle East, which is importing natural gas using the pipelines. Very, very few. Turkey is actually one of them, because Turkey has consumption which is exceeding its capabilities to produce natural gas. And they, in general, they have very limited resources when it comes to energy, natural gas or oil, and they always depend on importing. So we have actually 3 competing projects coming out from the region or passing through the region through the East Mediterranean. We start with this is the major one, which is Southern Gas Corridor. The Southern Gas Corridor starts in the Caspian Sea in Azerbaijan, goes up to Georgia, and then pass all the way through Turkey, and then it passed through the Adriatic Sea to, directly to Greece, and from Greece it passed through the Ionian Sea to Italy. This project is finished. Almost 90% of this project is completed and accomplished. Right now it's working on this, the Trans-Adriatic part of the project. And this is although of the tension between Turkey and Greece, which taking place almost all the time because of the maritime dispute between the two countries. However, the Southern Gas Corridor is a huge and mega investment. We're talking about 40 billion US dollar, and it goes back to, it started actually right after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So it's actually a very long period or long-term project. This project, when you can see it's like 3,000 kilometers long, and it actually passed through a lot of political upheaval. One of them was in this small area here in Armenia, because Azerbaijan and Armenia are not in good terms, so the pipeline could not pass from Azerbaijan to Turkey through Armenia. They wanted, so they changed the route to Georgia and then to Turkey. Things like that are not a short-term kind of investment, which you will say, okay, I will not go through Armenia, I will just go through Georgia, and that's a small deal. Actually, it's a big deal, because these two countries, Azerbaijan and Georgia, are now connected in their economic interest, and both are working as cartel against Armenia. This is another spot of geopolitics which needs to be explored based on the routes of the pipelines. So this part from the Southern Gas Corridor, point number 1, the corridor was not supposed to go to southern Italy. It was actually supposed to go to Austria in this area here. However, for some reason, in 2013, they changed the route from going to Austria, and they decided that Italy will be the new hub of receiving energy from all the southern and eastern parts of the Mediterranean. And this is very important development because now Italy has a very influential part when it comes to natural gas. Before that, Turkey was the platform where you must use to access the European market, energy market. Right now, Italy is that hub. You cannot access European market, energy market, without passing through Italy. There is small interconnection here, which is going to Bulgaria. Bulgaria actually wanted to play a larger role than what they are usually playing in European politics. And they wanted to take that corridor and be the one connecting to Europe. However, the European Commission didn't give the green light to Bulgaria to do that. Neither the owners of the pipeline. So it stops here. Why this project is significant? If you remember, there was the Arab pipeline, which was actually started during Mubarak time, and it was a very promising project. It was actually turning all around Sinai and then going through the Red Sea to Jordan and then joining Syria, and it was supposed to be linked to that corridor. Back then, that corridor was not called the Southern Gas Corridor, it was called NAPCO. And of course, lots of conspiracy theory came about this NAPCO, and it was the reason for the the Arab revolutions or Arab Spring or whatever you call it. Now we move to the second project, which is actually directly competing with the Southern Gas Corridor, and this is Turk Stream. It is starting from Russia, passing all the way under the Black Sea, coming out in the Turkish land, and is supposedly going to enter Europe through Bulgaria, and from Bulgaria it will go to the Balkans. There was another agreement between the Russians and the Greek that actually Greece might allow them to use the Greek land to extend the pipeline and be another route to Europe. However, this stays as to be done kind of deal, meaning that actually nobody's giving the green light to that project so far. So the project is pumping starting beginning of Jan this year, and it costed something like 17 or 18 billion dollar, and it goes. These are 4 pipelines actually, 2 carrying natural gas and 2 carrying oil, but supposedly the oil is not functioning yet. The natural gas one are functioning. They already supplied Turkey and part of Bulgaria with natural gas starting of this as of Jan 2020. The point is, this project did not get the green light not only from Europe, but it also didn't get the green light from the States. Some are saying because the States is not actually happy with the Russian new routes of exporting natural gas to Europe, which is going through the Turk Stream, and up in the north through the Nord Stream, which is going to Germany. But there is also another reason, which is that the United States themselves are an exporter of natural gas, and they would like the European countries to import the liquefied natural gas from the States. And if you remember, Trump's first visit to Europe after he became president was to Poland. The reason was because of he actually made a deal to export 5 shipments of natural gas to Poland. This was a major shift in the attention or the focal point from importing Russian gas to which is very cheap, very close, and very meaningful, into importing a very expensive liquefied natural gas, which requires building more LNGs in the European continent, which cost a lot of money. However, Americans were actually able to convince Poland to be the first country to take the liquefied natural gas.